All right.
Best offensive game.
Wilson, you drafted the Washington Commanders. You are Josh Harris. You get to hire. You are Rick Spielman. You get to live out your dream and be Rick. You get to be inside of Rick for a day.
Breach has had enough. Breach is out.
You should have heard the joke I made about Saturday night's streaming service on the earlier show. I need some sleep. You are in charge of the Washington Commanders. Who is it doesn't have to be a free agent. Can be, Harbaugh, Belichick, whatever you want. Where are you going with your hire?
Here's the thing, and I was thinking about this. We've talked about this. You know how the hot young offensive or defensive coordinator is always the next guy in line to get hired as a head coach, and there's the disconnect between calling plays and leading men, if you will. It's one thing to be Ben Johnson. It's something else to be a Mike Vrabel or a Mike Tomlin. But I think part of the math that the owners do, and even the people that are in charge of making these hires, they do, when you think about it, Ben Johnson, for example, is that maybe he's not a great people person. I'm just speaking in general terms. I don't know Ben Johnson, but we know what he did with Jared Goff in that offense. He can just call plays, but we'll give him the title of head coach because you have to move. You can't move laterally. You have to move up the org chart to change organizations. All that to say, I love the idea of Ben Johnson calling the plays for the Commanders with whichever quarterback they take second overall or trade up for Caleb or whatever it is. I don't know how he would be as a Ding and Campbell type. Like, ideally, I would trade for Ding and Campbell and Ben Johnson, and I would feel great about it. So I have a little hesitation, Breach, and I might throw a curveball here, and I might give the job to Jim Schwartz.
Ooh.
So he's got to get the OC hire absolutely right. You're on mute. But
that's spicy. I like that. He was
got to get
Jim
the OC
Schwartz
hire
is a good head coach in Detroit.
Yeah. And he almost got to fight with Jim Harbaugh, which would be hysterical to see that rematch.
Yeah. I mean, dude, Jim Schwartz took over the Lions when they were bad, and won some games and had them in a decent spot. And they went to the playoffs. He had that incredible line with Ndamukong Suh, Cliff Averill. Who else was on that defensive line? Who am I missing? Nick Fairley. Do they have Nick Fairley?
Golly, that's a you pulled that one out of the hat. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they had a really good defensive line. I feel like they had one more pass rusher. Anyway,
so he'll get the defense right. And you got to get the OC right. And, if you do that, golly. What do you think about hiring a defensive coach, Bruce?
And real quick, Schwartz, he took over after the Lions went 0-16, and he had them in the playoffs within 3 seasons.
He hasn't gotten he's very abrasive, so he hasn't really gotten a look since then. But that would be
don't care. That would be the enemy's abrasive too.
Yeah,
sometimes you need that when you.
I don't want Eric the enemy, but that's just me. All right, I'm the Chargers. I am. And by the way, I should point out that I guess that makes me Dean Spanos, which I should point out that my son John Spanos is a bit of an issue too with this franchise and sort of not talked about in a way that needs to be. I don't know if you guys have checked out Chargers.com and gone to the front office, but I hired this kid as a scout in 2003, and as he notes in his bio, Spanos' ascension within the organization coincided with one of the most successful eras in franchise history, from 04 to 09. I mean, it's the most ridiculous thing you've ever seen. Like the Dean Spanos, and that's my concern with the Chargers is this guy is in charge of. He's like the VP of football operations. Like it's not even. He's just like I said earlier. He's a very fast swimmer.
Though, because Telesco did a pretty good job.
He and Telesco were like buddy apparently.
Yeah, but it's not like a Dan Snyder, Bruce Allen situation.
Named executive vice president of football operations in 2013, one of his first priorities in that role was hiring of general manager Tom Telesco. They haven't updated the bio. We're a little slack on that right now. The two have guided the Chargers to 3 playoff appearances. The two have guided them and a pair of postseason victories. So the whole that's a little bit of a concern for me. But I am going to go out and I'm going to spend. I'm going to get somebody who I'm probably going to end up fighting with in 3 years. And I'm going to bring in Jim Harbaugh.
Ooh,
I like that better than Belichick.
Jim Harbaugh and Justin Herbert are in the AFC Championship game within the first 3 years, at least once of his tenure.
If you sell yourself for Brandon Staley and get those results, I get Jim Harbaugh. Jim Harbaugh came into those 49ers teams that were truly and utterly terrible and immediately turned things around. Lucky or not, he's lucky everywhere he goes, it seems like. San Diego, Stanford.
He's not lucky. He's just a great coach.
And I don't hate it. But again, you will have 3 years and then it'll be time. It will not last. But you go to deep playoff runs, you'll take it.
He took over the Niners didn't have a winning season, hadn't had a winning season since 2002. He took over in 2011, and they went to 3 straight NFC Championship games. That's insane.
With Colin Kaepernick, and I think Alex Smith was the first one.
Alex Smith, yeah. He made Alex Smith stop wearing a Padres hat and start wearing a Giants hat. It's a quarterback makeover. Harbaugh just wins everywhere he goes. So, Breach, you are Artie Blank. Or excuse me, Mr. Blank, as the kids call him. Mr. Blank. Who are you hiring for the Atlanta Falcons?
Blank, if I dressed up, put on a sweater, and had $1 billion in my bank account.
Actually, you kind of could look like Arthur Blank.
Breach, what would you do if your first interview as Arthur Blank was that picture of Will Brinson as Bill Belichick? What if that guy walked in?
Hey, by the way, Arthur Blank, friend of the podcast.
Not after you walk into the room looking like that.
Look, I think if I'm Arthur Blank, I'm swinging for the fences here. I am 81
You're going to write a blank check?
Blank check. Who knows? I might look. I think any owner in their 80s, Jerry Jones, there's a sense of desperation. You want to win this Super Bowl now, and I think I'm signing Bell. I'm calling up the Patriots, and I'm saying, tell me what I need to do. I'm not going to give you a first-round pick, but anything besides that, or maybe Belichick plays hardball and gets fired because he's only going to be traded if he wants to be traded. You play hardball and say, no, how about you fire me and pay me $25 billion or whatever it is for his last year of his contract. So I make the trade, bring in Belichick, and then it's all about bringing in the right quarterback.
What if the Patriots said Belichick's yours for $283,000
and a 7th-round pick?
Oh my God! I write the check and
what if Mike Vrabel's still out there?
Here's the thing: is that they just went through the Nashville circle by hiring Arthur Smith from the Titans. And that doesn't. I mean, Arthur Smith and Mike Vrabel are two totally, completely different coaches.
I don't know that Mike Vrabel would take that job.
I don't think Vrabel would go to Atlanta.
Why?
I think Vrabel would do Tennessee or New England.
I don't think Vrabel would do that out of respect for Arthur Smith, but maybe I'm crazy.
No, I mean, I only 32 of these jobs.
Belichick.
I don't know. I just don't get the Belichick thing. So what's the plan with the quarterback?
That's the plan. That's what we got to figure out. That's why you pay Belichick.
I like the Kirk Cousins plan. Is great.
There you go. Ryan Tannehill. Let's just keep going with the Titans connection. Tannehill could get that team to the playoffs.
Okay, well, I'm gonna regret saying this, but actually, one, you could draft Jaden Daniels, you could trade for Justin Fields, you could probably get Mac Jones for nothing and bring him to Atlanta with those weapons. I mean, and Josh McDaniels, takers.
Wilson's so anti-Belichick that actually blows my mind.
I know, it's pretty crazy.
I have never met someone who disrespects a 6-time Super Bowl winner more than Ryan Wilson.
If Bill Belichick was going to talk Tom Brady out of retirement, then let's have a conversation. But
Wilson's also I think the Chiefs could get hot in the playoffs. Wilson's like, that's the most preposterous thing I've ever heard.
This year, they better be lucky they avoided the Steelers. I'll just leave it at that. Mason Rudolph.
That's true. Okay, so Breach, you are now marked it. Wow, Arthur, you go from being Arthur Blank, who dresses to the nines on the sidelines, to being Mark Davis. You are wearing a jumpsuit.
Right back. I look at a bowl cut.
You are wearing a jumpsuit and covered in ketchup. So this is a lot more appropriate for you, I think. You're like a combo of Arthur Blank and Mark Davis here. Who are you hiring for the Raiders?
And eating at P.F. Chang's for dinner tonight, which is where I will call my coaching candidates from.
From the booth.
Wait, did we already hire Harbaugh? We can't do that twice, right?
That would be something Mark Davis would think about. Sure. Go ahead.
He's already been hired by
Jeff
Brinson.
Harbaugh.
Ben Johnson's still out there. Frank Smith out of the U is still out there.
I honestly think that I don't hate the Harbaugh idea, but if that's not there, I don't hate the idea of sticking with Antonio Pierce.
I don't know why you would.
I like that.
I mean, they blew up the Frank Bisaccia thing.
Rich Bisaccia.
Rich. Who's Frank?
Frank the Tank?
Frank the Tank Bisaccia. Rich Bisaccia. They messed that up. And the players have come out. I know you don't always listen to the players, but when they say this is the guy we want, after saying Josh McDaniels was terrible in terms of being a leader, what do you want to do? They scored 63 points on a team. They beat a team so bad they had to fire the coach.
I do think that I think that is a good example of what we should expect from the Raiders. Is it's going to come down to, can you and look, Jim Harbaugh has Donnie as his agent. Donnie is connection. Donnie is going to play the Chargers against the Raiders and drive up Jim Harbaugh's price and get a bunch of money for him. And I wouldn't be shocked at all if he ended up going to the Raiders mainly for personnel control purposes. But if he doesn't and he goes to the Chargers, then yeah, I think Antonio Pierce is the play. All right.
You know who Donnie's agent also is?
All right. We need what?
Donnie's agent?
Tom Brady and Jimmy Garoppolo.
Part owner.
Joe Flacco too.
Of the Oakland Raiders, who are now in Las
Yep.
Vegas.
And Jimmy Garoppolo, current quarterback of the Oakland Raiders, or the Las Vegas Raiders, who they've negotiated with. Okay. We need a bald, arrogant megalomaniac who went to Carnegie Mellon. Do we have any of those in the room?
Well, for what purpose, sir?
To be David Tepper.
Oh, there we go. Yeah.
That's right up Wilson's alley.
I was wondering where this is going.
Bald and pretentious college degree.
Yeah. I mean, David Tepper, literally, his name is on the business school at Carnegie Mellon. But
he bought it. He bought the building. So he gets to put his name on it.
We just do this by committee since David Tepper won't do a good job by himself.
Hey, Ben Johnson's still out there.
Just throw Ben Johnson $20 million a year, $15 million a year, whatever the report was.
When I was talking to BMAC and Leger on the Brady Quinn Leger podcast last week, and both of them said that I don't know why anyone would want to play for an owner who's throwing water on people or whatever he threw on people. While poor Scott Fitterer had just to stand there like a statue and not react because that's his boss. Players.
By the way, I said this. I said this morning. I think. I mean, if David Tepper needs like a, average, like middle-aged, extra-chinned Caucasian fella to tell him yes to every move he wants to make for several $1 million a year, I'm here for it. I mean, I will.
I think they've got those guys lined up. I think Scott Fowler reported that they fired all the no men because he's not used to having.
Yeah, sorry, Brent, that position's taken.
I'm just saying Scott Fitterer just got fired. His primary yes man got fired. I think Ben Johnson's the answer.
Tepper needs a spin guy, somebody who can spin what he says to. If Tepper says something that's obviously wrong, you spin it so that he becomes right, not a yes guy.
That's the problem, isn't it?
No, because you spin it around and explain to him why he's wrong, but in the nicest terms possible.
Oh, I see. I got you. I thought you meant
and then he sees the logic, and then you make him think he came up with a new idea of why he was right, and then he'll be on board with it.
Let me ask you guys this:
you're going to be paid $600,000 a year for this, so
why
it'll be worth it?
Why do billionaires who are successful in their original line of work suck so bad when they buy sports teams? Is because they think it's mad?
They think it's hubris. It's like financial hubris, basically.
But David Tepper
your
said
philosophy, your philosophy that got you to where you are in life is going to work in football.
But David Tepper said in the past that he's not one to fire people wantonly in his other line of work. And I don't know the data. I don't have the list of fire people in front of me. But if I take him at his word, and then suddenly why are you firing soccer coaches? No one even cares about. No offense, no one cares about the Charlotte FC team.
No,
but he's going through those guys like he's
I think it's because in the hedge fund world you can pretty quickly win. If you buy a distressed asset and it flips around, you get a huge win. You're not going to fire a guy who's closing those deals. In the NFL, it is a meritocracy, and you're not going to just win just because you just went out there and you spent the most money. That never happens like that. We've seen that for years with these owners, and so I think that is probably the primary problem: the belief that he can just make it. I'll just spend and this will work. And like. What's that?
Through force of will.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So that's our Black Monday roundup. We will be back.
By the way, quickly, we just had Ben Johnson, but there's Dan Quinn still out there, Raheem Morris, Idro Efro's on the staff. I don't know if he wants to keep
Frank Smith, Bobby Slowick, Todd Monken, Mike McDonald.
Yeah, I think they're going to have to end up either overpaying grossly for someone like Ben Johnson or hiring somebody who, Eric Bieniemy. We take that job in a heartbeat.
Tom Capers is out there.
Tom Capers.
original OG coach.
Tom Capers, the first Frank
Rich
Reich's
Kotite.
coach. He was
Rich
Frank
Kotite.
Reich's coach when they were the Panthers first started in '95.